Our next guests are the talented team behind the explosive documentary series, The Way Down. Please welcome Chrissy, Teigen, Marina Zenovich, Nile Cappello, and Ross Dinerstein. Thank you guys for being here. We're live in person. South by Southwest Studios live for the first time in 3 years. There was is a pandemic. We don't have to Zoom each other. We have a live audience here.
We can touch.
We can touch. We have human senses. We can touch each other. You guys are here for this documentary is explosive. It's like it's anytime you think it's going to get more sensationalistic, you see the facts and you're like, wow, this actually happened. It's the story of Gwen Shamblin Lara, who I think it's safe to say became a cult leader of the Remnant Fellowship Church, a faith-based weight loss program. It exploded, became very successful. She has a community. One thing leads to another, and now you have power, discipline, murder, tragedy, cult of personality, and it's still ongoing. There are still members of this fellowship, this church. The first part of the documentary, people can see it on HBO Max, 3 parts. The second part is coming soon. And you guys are on a panel today at the Convention Center at 4 p.m. The whole squad's coming. I have to ask the origin story of this. So Nile, you were the one who did the, we're gonna go to you first.
Can I set up Nile?
Oh, please.
I'm Nile's publicist hype man, so.
You're the Flava Flav of Nile, right?
So Nile, we call Nile the secret weapon at my company, Campfire Studios. So she came to us with this idea, like, we had just done Heaven's Gate for HBO Max, which is about another cult. Right. She's like, I have this other story about a cult leader. It's like, we already did it. It's in Nashville. Okay, I'm interested. I went to school in Nashville, and it's a female. I'm in. It's that simple. It was a done deal. So Nile then starts telling us all this stuff that she's sort of already gotten, ex-members and all this, and then she sent us a picture of Gwen Shamblin. And I said, if I wasn't in earlier, I'm 100% in now.
And I think that's important because the picture of Gwen, it's how would you describe Gwen, what Gwen became, the photo that actually sold Ross on the story, because I think the aesthetics of Gwen play a huge role into what became this cult.
For sure. There's something like larger than life about obviously her hair, but also her look. You can tell kind of right off the bat that she was a woman that is, at that time or was, selling a facade and selling this kind of outward message. And I think what's really interesting about the doc is that you see this image that she's trying to portray, and you can see it in herself, you can see it in the church, you can see it in the way the members dress, but beneath that there's this like dark underbelly that she's trying to cover up. So I think for me what's so interesting about her image is that like decaying over time. You can see how her hair got crazier and how things kind of went awry.
I think the term is big.
Yeah. Big.
Bigger,
yes.
Bigger, louder, and also more dangerous. And so now you got the squad. You got Ross, you got Nile, but you need a filmmaker to bring this story to life. And it's easy for the story to be lost with sensationalism, but I'm looking at the story, I'm like, it reveals so much about America. And so when you were sitting there, who's the director that we can really take the lens and examine what's happening in America, the bigger themes? Why'd you choose Marina?
Marina's track record speaks for itself, and she's done unbelievable work over many years, and Emmy nominations, and I always love
Emmy wins.
Yes.
Flex.
Primetime Emmy wins.
Primetime Emmy wins. Oh my God. And so I've been a fan of Marina's, and didn't know her personally, and then her agent is a good friend of mine, and we sort of started looking for a filmmaker, and Amanda LeBeau, her agent, is like, you should meet Marina. And I was like, is that even realistic? And I think it was kind of love at first sight. I mean, we sort of got into it right away. And you and Nile spoke, and we were already set up at HBO Max, and they're like, yeah, I mean, that's incredible if we can get Marina Zenovich. And so it was a very easy decision for us to make. And right away, Marina's producing partner is her husband, Peter Morgan, who's an extremely talented producer. So we didn't just get Marina, we got Peter as well, which is amazing. And we had this unbelievable team. I mean, we've been working on this for almost 3 years, continuing to work on it, as we're still, not even finished with part 2.
Chrissy, I'm gonna get you in for a second, but Marina, so you get this story, and you've been following this story, I'm sure, you heard about it.
I knew nothing about it.
Oh, you knew nothing?
No one did. No one knew anything about the story except for
Nile. I don't even know how you
It was just me.
It was Jesse. Oh, so
And
okay.
how did you hear about it?
Because my background's in investigative journalism, I like very much consider myself kind of a story hunter, and I have a weird interest in women in power. I was raised by a single mom, and so I'm really interested in like what that power can be for bad, not just for good. And so I had been really interested in the idea of a female cult leader, and had kind of been toying around with other ideas, but when I came across Gwen, it just hit on, it had that larger than life image about it.
The title of the documentary, I want to tell, the full title is The Way Down, God, Greed, and the Cult of Gwen Shamblin. I think God, greed, and cult intertwine in a very powerful way. And what was about this story, Marina, that said, okay, I'm in. I'm going to spend a significant part of my life to tell this story.
I mean, I think Gwen was a fascinating character, and we were all hoping that we were going to be able to interview her. Sadly, that didn't happen. I was interested in people who, I kept hearing when I interviewed people that anyone could get sucked into a cult. And it's kind of like, I don't know, you just start hearing these stories and you want to know more. So, I don't know, there's so many fascinating stories within this, and I think my job was really to just make it emotional and human and kind of set a tone that people would be interested in. It's a very sensational story, but you don't want to make it sensational.
Because there are people's lives that have been destroyed.
Well,
Totally.
We always talk about there's real stakes involved in these
Yes.
stories. Natasha, who's one of our main subject matters, I mean, we met with her, and her daughter and my daughter are the same age, and she's literally sharing custody at that time with Gwen Shamblin, with her daughter. And when we would meet with Natasha, it'd be when her daughter was at Ashlon, the compound, and just thinking myself, like, that's heartbreaking to not be with my daughter for a week, every other week, and then for my daughter to have then been at Ashlon, which is not a safe place for children.
And Chrissy, you came on as an executive producer, and you're like, I'm going to put my name behind this story.
Well, I'm clearly the most random one, right? I mean,
But you're not.
Well, you're not.
I'm not actually.
I don't
If
think
you
so
do
at
know
all.
my history of television viewing and the things that I'm a fan of, and whether it's true crime or investigative journalism or listening to podcasts about any story, that's why when it was first brought to us,
You called me from vacation.
The first thing I said was, how does nobody know about this? I mean, in this age of getting information instantly and getting it constantly all the time, I just couldn't believe that this photo of her hadn't gone viral, or this like
Photos.
photos, or this wedding. I remember seeing the wedding, and that was the first time that I was like, woo, this makes me, this gives me chills. It's
You
very
got to give
creepy.
credit to the church for staying under the radar, because that's
The Remnant Fellowship Church, which is still active, by the way.
correct.
Yeah.
And
I know. A lot of
being
these-
under the radar is how they were able to essentially do the damage that they did and continue to do. And our show has really slowed that momentum.
Well, Chrissy, the show, it's really fascinating what we're witnessing in America. I think we always have. The cult of personality, right? The cult of celebrity. Donald Trump became president. He was a celebrity, apprentice show, right? You are a celebrity, Chrissy, right? You have seen the highs and the lows. You know the power that comes with celebrity, the weight of it. What is it about the cult of personality, I think, in America right now that attracts otherwise sane, good folks to follow someone like Gwen Shamblin? And I want your take on that first.
I think people are very trusting of celebrities, and I think while there's so much negativity online surrounding being a celebrity, and there's constant attention and negative feedback all the time, I think a lot of people put a lot of their trust in people that seem to have it all, or seemingly,
The appearance of it.
Yeah, the appearance of having it all, and on the outside, obviously, it looks like it, and Gwen looked like she had it all, and that you could go to her and become this person that was happy with themselves religiously, happy with yourself physically, happy with everything that you could become as a family together. They were welcome. They wanted your family to be a part of the church,
Community.
not just you.
Community.
Everybody
Belonging.
Wants community, yeah.
Yes.
People want identity, people want belonging, people want purpose, people want community.
Yes.
And it seems these are themes that people are outsourcing this to like a one leader. One leader will give me salvation. There will be one guru, one authoritarian, one person I can trust, right? And so Gwen comes in and says, I'm one of you. Faith-based community, I was overweight, but look, I remade myself. This is faith-based weight loss, and look at me, and I'm now hot. And
But alarm bells should go off when somebody's telling you, instead of going to the grocery store, instead of going out to dinner this week, buy this book, or just it's
just do
not,
this.
Yes,
just
exactly.
do this. And I think now when you did the research, it wasn't just here are some recommendations. The Remnant Fellowship Church this is a lifestyle. You better commit to it, or else. Talk to us about the discipline needed to be a follower of Gwen Shamblin.
Yeah, there's a lot that is put on, a lot of pressure, a lot of, I think like you said, you can understand how these people as religious women looking to another woman for help with something that is very often a woman's issue. Not that men aren't affected by weight, but it's different. Image is such a big thing. Like, I didn't grow up in that environment, and I still struggle with body image and the messages that are being sent to me. So to have that be sent from the person who you're trying so hard to emulate, who themselves is skinny and has this big hair and looks great to you, it's a really powerful message, and I think people want that easy answer, because the meaning of life, there's not an easy answer to that, and people want that one. Right? Yes.
This is not just CrossFit. You got the stamp of God.
Yes.
She considers herself a prophet, a messenger of God. So it's like she has an authoritative persona, and she's like, I'm getting my info from God too, and Jesus, so you better listen to me.
You want to lose weight and you want to get right with God.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Come to our church.
Yeah.
You're getting these messages already from magazines, from people around you. Then you're getting it from God, is what she's saying. You're not going to heaven if you have weight on you. You're not.
Wow, you're not going to heaven if you have weight.
Yeah, the
so
weight.
You have to look hot for God. I mean, and I'm not saying this in a smug way, but oftentimes.
By the way, you look great.
Yes.
So don't worry about it.
You're definitely making it in.
Let it be known as a former Husky Pants. That was the greatest compliment someone could ever give me. But in all seriousness, the aesthetic part of this church is very important. That you have to look.
Yes.
God wants you to look a certain way.
Well, weight is
which is so odd. He's a jealous God, though, right?
Yeah.
So
a vain
yes,
God.
very
so much.
God, right?
There's so many moments in part one, when she does in front of the whiteboard and she does the pyramid of authority, and it's who you should listen to. And one thing that always drew me to it is, give her some credit. She's a female leader of a Southern Christian organization, which is very rare, but she preached hardcore misogyny. And, it's such a hypocrite. All the other leaders were men.
This is not a surprise.
Right. Yeah. But it was one of those things, when we got into it, I was kind of hoping at least she was kind of empowering women in a way.
Yeah.
And it was the exact opposite.
Yeah, I wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt a little bit. I think when the story was first brought to us, I was like, are we sure we're not just we're going to go in on this person who might have good intentions and is doing things wrong? And then, nope. I mean, it didn't take long to find out.
Women coming in and saying, my husband's cheating on me, I need advice. And she would say, correct me if I'm wrong, it's your fault because you put on weight.
She would say, I mean, we had stories of people that had miscarriages, who lost babies, who went to Gwen with their sorrow and were told, if you lose more weight, God will bless you with a baby.
It's the kind of the problems with the prosperity gospel that says God loves you because you're wealthy.
Yes.
And because you're not wealthy and you're not hot and you don't look a certain way, that means God's disfavor is upon you. If you follow me, I will take you to the path towards God and hotness, right? And there are people, it's easy for us to sit here and say, oh, these people are so stupid, but there's a tragedy here in this story. And one of the tragic aspects is the death, the murder of an 8-year-old boy. Can you tell us the story of Joseph and this 8-year-old boy who was
Nile, you should probably
who was killed by his parents?
Yeah.
Who were members of the church.
Yeah, so they were members out of Atlanta. This was really when Gwen was more ministering in other churches, so was doing they weren't as much of an organized, centralized church at that point. So they were in Atlanta. They had a young son who had some behavioral issues. By all accounts, it seems like he was really struggling, but when you're in Remnant, you're not allowed or encouraged to go seek professional medical help. So whereas,
you pray it away.
you prayed away. So, you only have Gwen to go
Cult
to.
101.
You don't
And
go
you go
to
through-
a
you go through
psychiatrist.
Gwen.
You don't. You go through Gwen, and you go through the other leadership. So when they were a family who probably could have used real help, and they didn't get any help, they got Gwen and Teigen telling them how to discipline their child.
Angers.
Yeah. Yes. Sorry, Ted Angers.
Anger changed his name to Angers because he's not angry.
Not at all. That's not an indicator that you're an angry
that's
person.
very, very
goes to
subtle.
this-
No subtle hints there.
Yeah.
The stranger than fiction when the enforcer of the church's name is Ted.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
There's definitely stuff we couldn't have made up. So.
But then what happens is that these parents of this 8-year-old boy who just needed some help.
Yeah. So they're basically the advice that they, were given was to enforce discipline, and the way that they interpreted that was to beat their child and to put him in a box while they were watching church services. He was acting out. He wasn't sitting and paying attention to the live service like most 8-year-olds you would think would do. Like not just being a normal kid, and they put him in a wicker basket. They shut it on his head. They tied it up with a cable. When the service was over, they opened it back up and he was non-responsive. So the parents were convicted, are serving out life sentences in jail for the murder of their son. The church still supports them to this day. The Smiths run a prison ministry, recruiting people from the prison to Remnant. They run a website called thesmithsareinnocent.com where you can read their theories
Paid
that they
their
say.
legal fees
Yeah, they paid all of their legal fees. We have literally checks written out from Remnant to the lawyers. So
I think it's important, right? The church is still ongoing. You guys have a 2-part documentary series. The first part, the 3 episodes, are on HBO Max. When the first part came out, and Chrissy, I'll ask you this: Did people reach out from the church? And this is for everyone, but did people reach out and say, "Wow, I had no idea that Remnant was responsible for this. I want to get out"?
Oh, absolutely. I think my comments on the first thing we had posted were just filled with people. One, that were very worried about Delaney. I think that was the story that resonated so closely with people. They were just so worried about her, and they felt so much compassion for her parents, and they were writing me, checking in on her, like, can we get an update on Delaney? Can we get an update on Delaney? But also, yeah, people were like, if you ever need to talk to anybody, I was a member, or I live in Brentwood, or please reach out. So that's what's amazing about being able to shoot through. I mean, a lot of these stories tend to be tales of the past. We watch them crash and burn, and everything.
Jamestown, that happened long time ago.
Exactly, everything already happened
I'm an
already.
ex, I got out, but this is functional.
Yeah, Heaven's Gate. You look at it. There was an end
Wild
to that.
country,
Right.
Yeah.
Marina, would you say more than half of our interview subjects came out of incoming calls for
Oh,
part
totally.
2?
I mean, I got something this morning from my website. It's like, I want to help these people. Somebody, I didn't even tell you guys, someone emailed me saying, I live in Brentwood. The PE teachers at my son's school are Remnant members, and they're body shaming the kids.
Wow.
And it's
Which
just
is the
kind of
worst
like,
thing
holy,
You've ever
can
heard.
do.
right?
And it's terrible.
Yeah.
to have your PE teacher growing up. PE is not awful enough. You also have to have your PE teacher believe that you're going to hell because you're fat.
But it's one of those situations where, because it's ongoing, because this church is still active, and not to be melodramatic about this, but it's one of those moments where a documentary can actually help people.
Oh, totally.
And you were mentioning, Mary, I was reading that you want one of the goals of this documentary to be to help people get out. And so
the goal.
And so with part 2 coming out, do you think this can actually just get some of the people on the fence? How do you think they can just get out? What are some resources that you think that this movie and this team that you guys have here provide for those folks to just have that courage to get out?
Oh, God.
Peeling the curtain back.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, sorry to interrupt.
No, go.
Yeah, I'm just saying, just peeling the curtain back and just showing the effect, because we have so many ex-members in part 2 that talk about it. I mean, the one guy who was a homosexual and had an eating disorder from being there, and he went to them and said, look, I'm gay, I'm coming out, and they're like, we can fix that. And he's like, first of all, I don't want to be fixed, and number 2, you can't fix it. And that just is so heartbreaking, and I feel like members of the church that may or may be homosexual might see that piece and understand this deprogramming that they've been trying to do is wrong. I think just that one part is going to be groundbreaking.
I think Megan Cox is a great example. She was someone who, didn't realize that this is what had happened. She thought like she was a bad kid and she wasn't good enough, and that's why she'd been kicked out. That's why she'd been ostracized. And so I think that that's, you know, the simple act of having this out there, and for people who might be questioning, to be like, I feel like this is weird, and you know, when you Google it, this is what comes up, and you have somewhere to watch, and you have the information there, and you have it fact checked, and you know, based in reality, and that has never existed for these people before, and I think that's been powerful.
People reach out to each of us. I mean, the emails that I get, I forward to Megan Cox, who has a foundation.
And Raphael
Martinez. You know, there are people out there who want to help. And I think for the people who are in the cult who are thinking of leaving, if they can just watch this and gain some strength, because I think we heard so many times, it's just like that one moment, like you hit a breaking point where you're like, wait a second, what's going on here? This isn't normal.
I could talk to you all for another 30 minutes, but thank you for taking the time. Thanks
you.
for making this documentary. The first 3 parts are available on HBO Max. Part 2, the last 2 episodes are coming out soon, but you are here at South by today, 4 p.m., Ballroom E and F at the Convention Center. Everyone who's watching can come by and see you guys, and they can watch the HBO Max documentary. Thank you all for joining us today at South by Southwest Live Studio. You can watch all of our studio interviews on the South by Southwest TV app, available on Apple TV, Roku, Android TV, and Amazon Fire. These interviews are also available on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/SXSW. And for a complete list of our interview schedule, check out sxsw.com/studio. I'm Wajat Ali. Thanks for tuning in.